by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. My name is Sophie Sushan. I'm one of the digital transformation consultants here at the Digital Transformation Hub, a part of the Info Exchange group with Connecting Up. The Hub focuses on digital technology as an enabler to support service transformation, new ways of working, and assisting not-for-profits on the broader digital transformation journey. Before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. We're on Microsoft Teams today to make it as interactive as possible, so feel free to turn your camera on and stay on mute during the presentation. If you have any technical issues, please type it in the chat box and I can assist you. We really encourage you to ask as many questions throughout the session, so please type them in the chat box and Anne and I will answer them by the end of the webinar. Please note this webinar will be recorded and a link to the recording, the slide deck and a short survey will be sent to you as soon as the webinar ends. Today I'm excited to welcome you to boost your Microsoft Teams presentation skills and introduce you to Anne, our presenter today.
Thank you so much, Sophie, and thank you everyone for joining me today. In today's webinar, we'll learn how to schedule your meetings Teams webinar, incorporating polls into your webinar, record and shares the webinar's content, and activating live caption for accessibility, as well as navigating breakout rooms. So let's dive in right away. Webinars are structured meetings where presenters and participants have clear roles. So I'll give you some key differences between webinars and Teams meeting so that when you schedule either of them, you can differentiate whether you should hold the meetings or hold a webinar. The number of participants that can join meetings and webinars are the same, up to 20,000 participants. However, with meetings, the first 1,000 participants have full interactive meeting capacity. Once the participants' numbers go over 1,000, from over 1,000 up to 20,000, they only have view-only capacities. In webinars, audience interactions is configurable and can be specified by presenter and organizer of that webinars. So if you estimate that you have a really large audience, more than 1,000 participants, make sure you use webinars instead of meetings. And the last features is very interesting. With meetings, there is no pre-meetings activities such as registration form, or you assign different roles for different people holding that meetings. However, with webinars, you can prepare a pre-webinars registration form. You can assign different roles to different organizers of that webinars, such as organizers or presenter, so they have different permissions with that webinars. So in general, webinars are structured meetings where presenter and participant have clear roles. It support registrations and provide attendee engagement data. So yeah, for casual meetings day by day, you might use meeting, but when it's come to webinars, webcon, some more complicated conference that you need more features, you might consider webinar. So how can you schedule your webinars in Teams? Firstly, you click the calendar icon on the left-hand menu of your Teams screen. Then you select webinars from the drop-down in the top right corner. Then you can create a customized registration form. Don't forget to add presenters when you create a webinar. Whoever create the webinars will be considered as the organizer of that webinar. And the role as organizer cannot be changed easily from the front end. It might be changed from the back end. So take care, whoever, to take care of considering who should be the organizer of the webinar. However, with presenter role, you can add as many presenters as you want, and it can easily be changed when you edit your webinar later on. So how can you edit your webinar? There are a few options, but as you can see, once your webinar is created, you can click on the edit button, circle red on the screen right now, or click on meeting options to edit the meetings, or the webinar, sorry. Once you have sent the invitation, you can reopen the calendar invite and edit it as I just introduced before. You can change, you can add and change co-organizers, breakout rooms, captions, lobby options, recording, chat, and presenters. So there are heaps of options that you can prepare beforehand by select edit and then meeting options. With the webinars in Team, live captions is really useful. Team present real-time captions. In order to turn captions on, select the More Options buttons with 3 dots and then choose Turn on Live Caption options. There are a few tips to make sure that captions are as accurate as possible. Firstly, you should speak clear, slowly, and directly into the mic. You should avoid location with background noise, especially when we work from home a lot, and there might be some background noise from your dogs or your neighbors. So yeah, make sure that you avoid those locations. Avoid having multiple people speak at the same time, so the captions are more accurate and clear. The caption will display at the bottom of the screen, as you can see in the image on the left-hand side. And it will also identify who's speaking at that moment. There is a slight lag time-wise when you switch it on because it takes a few seconds to generate. So don't forget to start your webinar recording by select Start Recordings, and then you can turn on the live captions. Normally, by default, the live captions go with the recording. However, if you find that the live captions is not automatically turned on when you start recording, please feel free to click Turn on Live Captions. There are different modes that you can use in Teams webinars or Teams meeting to make your presentations more interesting. You can use presenter mode, standout mode, or side-by-side. These are the 3 main modes that allow you to customize how you appear when presenting in Teams. With reporter mode, it allows you to place content above your shoulder as a visual aid. With standout, your image will float above content of the slide deck. With side-by-side mode, it displays your webcam feed next to the content that you're presenting. When you share your content, select reporter, standout, or side-by-side mode on the content sharing tray, circle red on the screen right now. So you can choose the presenter mode that you would like to have. You can also customize your background like what Sophie and I have been doing. You can prepare a background image prior to the presentations by selecting Add Background buttons, also circle red on the screen right now. You can either choose images that are already loaded by Microsoft in the background space, or you can add a customized one with your organizational branding, like what I'm using right now. In order to switch between different presenter modes during sharing, you can use the presenter toolbar to switch between the 3 modes, or even turn the presenter modes off. After you have changed the presenter mode, we would dive into more participants engaging features called creating a poll. The best practice is to have polls set up prior to delivery of your webinars as draft. With this in mind, we'll be focusing on learning today on creating a poll prior to the webinar. The poll can be launched during the web meeting or webinar so that attendees can view and answer and interact with the result as well. When a poll is launched, it pops up as a notification on the meeting screen and also displays in the meeting chat window. In order to add a poll before the start of the meeting, choose Edit the meeting invite in your calendar, select Polls, Add, and Save. Or you can select the plus button, New Poll, or you can select the type of poll as well, such as multiple choice, and then you enter the questions and options and then save as usual. Repeat this step for all poll questions. They will by default save as draft if you haven't launched them. Once you have the question in the polls tab, you can drag and drop them to reorder them as well. Yeah, it's more convenient and you're more well prepared before actually launch those polls for the webinar. There are two ways you can launch the polls. Firstly, before, during, or after the meeting, select Launch on the Polls tab for the poll you're wanting to answer to. You can see the polls icons circle red, and then you can see how you can click the Launch button in there. The second way you can launch the poll is you select polls icons in your meeting to open the polls pane and select Launch. Anyone inside or outside of your organization who's been sent the meeting notification and is using Teams, both on web and on the Teams applications, can vote. Once the attendees submit their answer, you'll be able to see the responses immediately. The percentage of people answered the questions. The results can be viewed on the polls tab or on polls pane in real time. Polls that have been launched and are currently accepting responses will be marked as live. You can see the image on the left-hand side with the red box circled around that live status. Live marked in red, it will be displayed in the top left corner of the poll. Polls that are closed and are not currently accepting responses will be marked closed in dark gray, also in the top left corner of the poll. Once you have launched the poll, you got the result. People might have different opinion about the questions. You can separate the audience or the participants into different breakout rooms so they can discuss more about the questions that they have been voting in the polls or any issue related to the questions that you have prompted before. So breakout rooms is a very helpful feature. Only meeting organizers using the desktop versions of Teams can create and manage breakout rooms. So don't be surprised if you cannot find these features in browser's version of Teams. In order to enable breakout rooms, select Rooms and then Breakout Rooms. Then the breakout room screen will be displayed. You can create rooms and assign attendees automatically once you have selected the number of rooms to create, or alternatively, you can manually select people for each room. So we're going to look at the automatic assignments as part of this webinar. We will select automatically in the breakout rooms windows and then choose create rooms. You can automatically assign attendees to breakout rooms when they are created. Team will just evenly distribute attendees to their rooms. If you want to move people around later in the meeting, it has to be done manually. In the last image on the right-hand side, you can see in room settings, a timer can be set in the breakout room as well, so that attendees are aware of when the breakout session will finish. Once the timer expires, the rooms will close and attendees are returned to the main meeting screen. We have gone through a few features, live captions, breakout rooms, presenter mode, and then all these should be recorded and then shared later on, or the content of the webinar then should be shared with other participants that might not have time or might not have been able to join the webinars. So that's why teams develop the record and shares webinar features. Once you press the recording buttons, the webinars will be recorded. There are some important notes that you should note. Meeting recordings won't capture whiteboards, annotations, or shared notes in that meetings. When you view a meeting or webinar recording, you will only see up to 4 people's video stream at once. Recordings are available after the meeting or webinar is scheduled to finish, not at the actual finish of the meeting or webinar. And the recording is located on the chat tab of the meeting and webinar. For meeting, all the participants of the meetings can view the recording afterwards. However, with the webinars, it depends on the configurations of wherever admin your Office 365 tenants or who organize the Teams meeting. All recording will have an expiry date, which is set by your administrator. So make sure you know and you're aware of the expiry date. You can also ask your administrator to extend this date as well. And be careful with webinars. Only meeting organizer can download the recordings. So this is why I told you at the start of these sessions that make sure you remember who's organized the webinar and who are the co-organizers as well as presenter of the webinar. Now I'll hand back to Sophie for the Q&A sessions.
Thanks, Anne. If you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat box. I've got a couple of questions that came in before the session. And how do I download the recording after the meeting or webinar?
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. Right here, in order to download the recording of the meeting, you can just go to chat and then download it when the recording is ready after the meetings. With webinar, only organizer can download the meetings. Only organizers can download the webinars recordings. So make sure you are aware of who is the organizer of that webinar.
Great, thanks, Anne. I've got another question here. Who is the organizer of the webinar, and what additional features do the organizers get when you're running a webinar?
Thank you, Sophie. With whoever created the webinars, by default, whoever create the webinars will be considered as the organizer. If your administrator create webinars automatically through some complex code, yeah, they can assign the organizers in the back end. But normally from the front end, from the way that I just introduced to you in these sessions, whoever create the webinars yeah, will be assigned as the organizer. The organizer have most of the features very similar to the set of features that presenters have. Those that are more complex in the back end, such as changing the settings of the webinar, download recordings, and yeah, most of them are back-end features. Then the organizers is the only person that can do it. However, with all the features that I introduced to you, such as Breakout, such as recording, live captions, change presenter mode, they can all be done by presenter, breakout room, and download recording. Those will be handled by organizer. Do you want to add anything, Sophie?
No, that's great. Thanks, Anne. We've had no questions in the chat today. So if you do have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to email us or respond to the follow-up email that will also have the recording and a short survey for you to complete. We'll give you back a couple of minutes of your afternoon. I hope you have a nice day and we'll see you on another webinar. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for your time today. Bye.